You either die a hero, or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. That's a phrase that's been used to describe a lot of video game companies and how they handle their IPs. And now, Saints Row is the newest series to join that club. Like a lot of people, I had my misgivings about the reboot early on, and now having played it myself, I would say my gut feeling was right. Let's start with the game's shaky launch. I played version 1.06, so I didn't come across any major glitches or issues. Well, for the most part. But it's still not a good thing that it was released in a state that looked like it wasn't even beta tested. It's especially frustrating that this is yet another big name game studio that released a game that was barely functional at its initial release. And I'm not expecting a game to be 100% glitch-free at launch, or at any time really. But when a game is officially released, it shouldn't be too much to ask that what you paid for actually works when you get it, whether it costs $60 or $6. One of the things the original Saints Row was known for was its cast of eccentric and memorable characters. This new cast of characters is not. Granted, I wouldn't call them unlikable, and I admit the story does have its decent moments with them. But overall, they're generally pretty bland and not that interesting, even with all of the missions that involve one-on-one time with them. It feels like the game wanted to take a more grounded approach with the main cast to make them more relatable, but with how campy the setting is, it just makes their underdevelopment that much more apparent. Something else that was apparent was the lack of raunchy humor, which is almost non-existent.
We need to get over to FB's ASAP.
In fact, I knew things weren't looking good when it was announced that the iconic penetrator weapon would be making a reappearance. Joking aside, I would have to disagree with Volition's statement that body humor is outdated. I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, but raunchy comedy is nonetheless still popular among many demographics to this day.
Dick.
And honestly, I really don't think the number of people who would object to any kind of raunchy humor, in an M-rated game especially, is high enough to stir up major controversy. If anything, it makes people question why one would try to appease such a minority of individuals. The gameplay is overall solid and enjoyable enough. However, I don't really like the new healing mechanic, where you have to perform a takedown on an enemy in order to restore a bar of health, and then you have to wait some time before you can do it again. There's a lot of side missions you can do, but I didn't really find them very interesting or worth playing except to earn some extra cash. At least insurance fraud is back. I played about 10 hours of this game, and I don't think playing for another 10 is going to change my mind about it. If it didn't have the Saints Row name attached to it, it would be a pretty average and unremarkable open world game. But the fact that it uses the brand of a well-loved series inevitably draws unfavorable comparisons. I can appreciate that there's a lot to do in the game, but none of it is interesting enough for me to call it anything better than an underwhelming follow-up. It feels like in an attempt to make the game appeal to a broader audience, it ironically ended up steering more people away. I don't think it's inherently a bad thing if a series decides to change things up, or take things in a different direction. But when you take away what made something so memorable in the first place, that's when you start to lose people. Even if you've never played a Saints Row game before, I don't think you'd find this reboot much more than mediocre, and there's nothing in the game that you can't find in others similar to it, and done better at that. You know, like the originals. Seriously, just play those.